We constantly have different kind of interactions with a lot of people around us in life. We have new connections, we meet new people, and I feel like through every new person that we get to know, we also get to know new parts of ourselves. People really are mirrors to our own soul and reflections of parts within us that we get to discover and uncover as time goes by. Connections are a very important part of our life, of our social life, and also of our own personal growth. But they're also the source of a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, a lot of problems. And sometimes it can feel like isolating from everyone can prevent us from heartbreak, can prevent us from being hurt. And I think I definitely was in a phase like that at some point where you might get a bit scared of meeting new people because maybe you've just been hurt so much in the past. But I do not believe in isolating ourselves forever in order to prevent hurt. I think that being able to be in a community and come back into society after maybe going through a very difficult healing phase can be very beneficial, and is really how we're gonna also strengthen our abilities as an individual, get to understand ourselves better, and really practice our skills when it comes to emotional, mental balance, and learning to also love other people despite their mistakes or despite the uncomfortable feelings that connections oftentimes can bring up within ourselves. Today we're going to talk about how we can stop internalizing other people's behavior toward us and no longer take things as personally. I think this is a very, very difficult thing, and it takes a lot of time because not alone do you have to be able to understand other people's behavior, you also have to be able to listen to your own emotions and really observe how certain actions, certain conversations, certain interactions make you feel, but you also have to learn to take a distance from your own feelings, and that's a very hard process, but everything can be worked on, everything can be strengthened like a muscle. So I definitely think that this is also something that can be very beneficial for us, which will also just allow us to go through life more easily and stop really like constantly questioning ourselves, constantly doubting ourselves every time that someone hurts us or every time that things happen that don't feel aligned and people treat us in a way that make us feel like maybe we deserve to be treated like that. Maybe we're not good enough, because that is never the case. But it's so easy to internalize other people's behavior toward us, and we usually think that we are the problem, when actually a lot of the time we might not really be the problem. But everything is to be taken with a grain of salt, of course. A lot of people are very focused with finding that one person or finding that one true connection or really understanding the truth of life and the truth of relationships. And I think somewhere inherently in human beings, we want to hold on to things. We want to know that we make the right decisions. We want to know that we love the right person. It's very embarrassing sometimes. It can hurt really much, and even our ego can take a big hit when we give ourselves, when we get vulnerable with people, and afterwards we see that vulnerability or that love or sensibility is not reciprocated in a way that maybe we want it to. It can leave us feel very disappointed, not only in humanity, not only in the people that we've met in life, but also in ourselves. We might not trust ourselves anymore to find the right people. We might not trust that we will be able to find the people that love us, to connect, or sometimes we really think that we are just not good enough, that nobody thinks we're good enough, that nobody thinks we're worth of being with or sharing love with. And I'm not gonna lie, I do have that more often than not. I think, it's very easy to look at people and to think like, oh, they must be so perfect, or everyone must make them feel so good. But I must say that a lot of the times people will treat you in a way, and when people look at you in first glance, they would say, why would anyone treat you that way? Things just are not necessarily logical, and trying to always make sense of understanding why some people behave a certain way is going to really throw us for a loop. The cause of some behavior is not always something that we can see as we get to meet people. We are the results of our entire lives. Sometimes even things pre-wired in our DNA. So when we meet people, we only meet a glimpse of them in their timeline. It's like it's only one certain dimension, it's only one certain timeline, but they have existed in so many different spaces, in so many different times. And there are so many different pieces of the puzzle of who they are that we have never met and we might never meet. So sometimes when people behave a certain way, we think that we can understand everything through the person that we see in front of us, but there's so much more from the past, even from past lives, if you believe in that. I think also a lot is pre-wired in our DNA. A lot of things also come from nature, and other things also come from nurture, right? There's a lot of things in people, in their psyche, in their behavior, that we will never really be able to understand when we first meet people. And that, I think it's also very important to understand and keep in mind that every single person is on their own timeline. Every single person is looking for their own happiness, is looking for their own peace, is looking for their own success. And it's very important to remember that everyone's idea of success and happiness looks differently. So what might be looking for happiness for you might not be the same for another person. And a lot of the times we tend to forget that our view on the world is not necessarily shared with every single person that we meet. So it can be very confusing sometimes trying to understand another person's behavior from our point of view. A lot of the times we tend to forget that some people have a completely different way of thinking and a completely different background that completely changes their whole mental process, their whole emotional process. But if we learn to keep that in mind, just everything that I'm saying right now, if this narrative is something that we also add to our foundation and that we just keep putting back in at the right time, because this is also not always going to apply, but in some moments this can be very beneficial for us to be able to distance ourselves and to find some more peace and balance, and to know that not everything is a direct reflection or a direct reaction to who we are or what we have done. And so like I just said, we all are wired differently. We all have a different background. We all have different childhood memories, childhood trauma, childhood environments. And as we are in contact with each other, as we meet new people, we constantly have a very big impact and an influence on each other. It's like every connection, even the most mundane or even the little encounters that we don't notice on a day-to-day basis, create like this huge butterfly effect that can trigger us into becoming a certain person or into not becoming a certain person, And I feel like a lot of people, we meet each other and we act different ways. And so if I act a certain way with one person, they might take it in a good way, but with another person, it might trigger some kind of childhood trauma that maybe I'm not aware of, or maybe they are not even aware of. And a lot of the times when these triggers come up, when certain people act a certain way or don't act a certain way, say certain things or do not say certain things, it's gonna trigger people in different ways. A lot of the times this trigger is going back to our inner child and can remember a lack of love or a sense of insecurity or inadequacy that we may have felt as a child. And a lot of the times that's a very painful thing to do. I think we all kind of have this inner child in us that still needs tending to, that still needs to be reassured and told that they are loved and they are safe, and the way that people treat them is not who they are. It doesn't define their worth. I think it's very important to tell children that they are so worthy, and we all have our inner child with us. We carry it with us. I think it's a part of our psyche in a way. I'm sure there's a lot of studies on that, but I can't really give any citations right now or references. I would definitely suggest doing more research on the psyche and on the inner child and what it actually does to us on our everyday basis and how it impacts our emotional body. But basically, the most important thing to remember is that we are worthy no matter how other people make us feel. But a lot of the time we live in a world that little by little we get sent messages. We get sent messages that actually show us, or that we decode in a way that makes us feel unworthy. But what I've realized, and here I must say I'm a communication student once again, so I have to talk about the way communication communication really impacts our psyche, really impacts our way of not only understanding the world, but also understanding ourselves. And a lot of things get so easily lost in translation. If you have done any studies, maybe you might know Stuart Hall. He talks about the encoding and decoding model. The encoding and decoding, when you have a sender, you have a message, and you have someone that received the message. The sender must encode a message with a certain meaning, and the receiver will decode that message. I was thinking about this, and I realized that we also have a communication process within ourselves before even sending the message to other people. We have our own emotions, we have our own triggers, we have our own mental matrix, we have our own paradigm, our own way of seeing and understanding the world, which is going to impact our way of understanding our own feelings. But it is so difficult, and I think the majority of humanity has a very hard time understanding the messages of their own body, understanding the messages of their own emotions, decoding everything that's going on in their inner world. So that is really something that I focus on this channel. That's something I really work on, getting really in touch with your own mind, your own emotions, and your own body to really understand yourself, to really understand your psyche and your spirit, and to be able to act more in line with what your body language and the language of your emotions and your mind, your subconscious mind speaks, because we speak to ourselves through our dreams, through our mind, through our emotions. These are all things that we cannot control, but they show us glimpses of who we are, of what we feel, of what we need or what we want and what we don't want. So I think to lead a life that is going to bring us closer to feeling the happiest and feeling in line with ourselves starts really by understanding ourselves like that. Imagine how much gets lost in translation when, first of all, there's a lot of messages internally that we do not understand about ourselves, that we're not able to communicate towards ourselves or decode. And then with the lack of information that we have about ourselves, we try to communicate it to other people, or sometimes it's subconscious, our body language, and also in that translation of our emotions, a lot gets lost. And then we have to understand that every single person also has their own way of perceiving other messages. So the way we might say something, someone else can take it completely differently. The way I see it now, it's like 3 stages of encoding and decoding messages, one internally, one towards the other, and one receiving. And at every stage of communication, there is messages that get lost in translation. So of course, it can be very confusing to understand why certain people act a certain way. What exactly does it mean? And why does it make me feel some type of way? So just to recap what I was just saying, we all have a different pre-wired understanding of the world, which is going to be based on childhood, on life experiences. Maybe we went through some very traumatic things recently, which will also alter the way we perceive certain people's behavior. It's like if you had a bad experience with a guy or a girl with a certain name, if within a span of like a certain short amount of time you meet someone with the same name, a lot of the time it's going to trigger you. Same with people with astrology, when they know like, oh my god, she's a Gemini, I can't do that. Nothing against Geminis, but it's just such a standard example. A lot of people are like, oh no, I went through something bad with that, so they look for the same patterns to like understand what is good or bad, or what they have to avoid or what they do not have to avoid. So that is just to show like everything we go through is really going to impact our way of understanding and making decisions in the world. But sometimes it's also pre-wired in DNA, I believe. I feel like some things are also from your ancestors and from your family lineage, that it just wires you to think and feel a certain way, which is why we're able to connect with some people and not necessarily able to connect with other people. It's because we're so different, or we trigger each other. Some people are addicted to the triggers. That's why they stay in cycles with people that trigger them in the way that they felt like they needed to be triggered, because that's how they felt love in childhood. But that's a whole other video that I'm definitely going to talk about. But it is very important to understand that however we decode and understand other people's communication, behavior, feelings is very biased, and it goes through more than one filter most of the time. So if you kind of think about it, because we always look for the truth and we always want to understand, like, for example, if somebody hurt you really bad and you must like, did they really like me, or was it all just a lie? Or, you know, if you start to analyze people's behavior, we can never really understand the truth because we never know the full spectrum of things that people go through, of the way that people's mind work. And then I feel like the truth is not even something that can be spoken. People cannot translate their full truth. I mean, this video is based on an insight that I received last night, and it was so pure and I felt it very deeply. But even you receiving the message right now, it's just a translation of the truth that I've felt. Some things are getting lost in translation, or some things are not being received by you in the way that I meant it, and that's just because we're all different. I speak from my own background, I speak from my own experiences, and you're gonna understand this message through your own experiences, which might not be the same for you and me, but I still hope that it helps you in the way that it should. But all that to say, like, the truth is never something that can be fully spoken. I feel that the truth is always something that is felt. It's a feeling more than a saying, and all we can do in this world is be vessels through which the truth can be translated, and we can just show little snippets of the truth that we have found. And that's also the same with religion. All these religious books, they carry so much truth, but I don't think that the truth is always received in the right way, and that's why there's so much division. It's because so much gets lost in translation. But sometime when you read a certain thing at the right time, with divine timing, in the right moment, when you needed it, with the right experiences, and all the puzzle pieces are at the right moment, and you receive a piece of knowledge at the right time, that's when you can attain the feeling of truth. But this, I'm going 1,000 different directions from the main topic, but it's all background information, so I really hope it's making sense and you're still following me. But all this information leads me to just come back to the practice of seeing people's actions and understanding other people's behavior as not necessarily good or bad, not necessarily trying to see the full picture of their behavior, of their person, as good or bad, or try to put them in a box. And I know we love that, and as human beings we sometimes have a very hard time believing and understanding that, you know, cruelty and compassion live in the same heart. You know, it's just part of who we are, and I truly believe that we both have this both sides. It's like yin and yang. We both have the light and the shadow, and as soon as we're able to accept those both sides of ourselves and not run away from one or the other, we're also going to be able to be more compassionate, more loving with other people, and also learning to let go, understanding that other people are on their own path and we are all trying to figure out our stuff, but not taking personally how they behave. And I'm gonna say this one thing, because a lot of the times I say that nothing is black and white, you know, nothing is good or bad, but that does not mean that some people aren't just good or bad, or that good or bad does not exist. This is kind of paradoxical, but even the saying that nothing is black or white is a black and white statement, if that kind of makes sense, you know? So yeah, some things are gray, but for there to be gray, there must also be black and white. The reason that I choose this narrative, and the reason that I'm saying that this way of thinking can be practiced and can help us to move forward, is because this, in my life, in my experience, has helped me to come back to forgiveness, come back to compassion, and understand that, you know, yes, I live in my own little world, but everyone is living in their own little world, and sometimes shifting the narrative only to suit us and to suit our ego and to make ourselves feel better is going to be like have this backward effect where we just hold on and where we feel superior. And I just do not want to get arrogant or think that everyone else is in the wrong and I'm never in the wrong, or that in someone else's story I cannot be the villain. If I'm able to let go of the idea that everyone has a certain position in my life and that we're just all characters in our own story, trying to figure out the way. It helps me to really love more, to let go, and to really move on, to really be like, it is what it is. Bless up, wish you the best, but this is just not for my story. And it also shows me more the things that I can still work on. It shows me more my triggers. It also helps me to understand myself more, and that's literally what I'm trying to do. So that is really why this way of thinking is one that I choose for now. But like I said, circumstances might differ. In one situation, this might help. In another, it might not. So really look at your experiences, how things make you feel. And I think it's really about getting to choose the narrative for our life for different situations. I think there's a lot of different storylines. There's a lot of different perspectives on the world, paradigms, ways of understanding the world, and they're all very beautiful. But I think that a very powerful thing to do in this life is to getting to understand the different narratives and learning to apply the right paradigm, the right perspective with the right situation, because doing it with the wrong one can actually cause harm sometimes. Sometimes, I'm not going to say if there's a very abusive person you necessarily need to forgive them. If you don't feel ready for that, you don't have to. So also don't listen to what other people say. Listen to your emotion, listen to your inner world, and if something resonates for you, then it's the right time right now. Maybe it doesn't resonate right now, but maybe in 2 years it might. Everything is constantly changing, and our true compass is a feeling inside, not in a word, not in a video, not in a book. It's the way we receive it, and it makes us feel. So if this felt good for you, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I hope that little piece of information helped you out. I hope it can help you to detach more from other people's way of treating you. You are so beautiful. You are so worthy. You are everything and more. And I think that is something, we don't realize a lot of the times. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and it made me realize that some people see us through eyes of love and ways that we do not see ourselves most of the time. And if we would see ourselves through loving eyes, if we would see ourselves through the eyes of God, we would realize how worthy we are. We would realize how precious we are, and we would treat ourselves so much better. We would walk away when necessary, forgive other people, for they do not know. They do not know. Other people that treat you wrongly, other people that hurt you, are still looking themselves. Maybe they don't realize how precious they are. Maybe they're afraid of something within them that is still hurting. You are so precious. You are so beautiful, and you deserve everything and more. And if people make you doubt that, maybe they're not right for you. Maybe this is not the right path. I truly believe that we deserve to feel as worthy as we truly are in the light that we have been made. So yeah. Okay, this video felt so messy and so all over the place, but I hope it was consistent. I hope you got from it what you wanted. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. There's more where this came from. Bye.